Hey guys, it's Jeff from RenoVision, and today I'm comparing 3 different paints from the Dulux paint line. We've got the basic paint, we have an advanced paint with no VOC, and we've got my bulletproof product here. We're going to be comparing these to find out which one might be best for your next paint job. This is actually the 4th video in a series that we've been doing, guys. We've been exploring all kinds of different paint companies. We've tried Behr, we've tried Benjamin Moore, we've tried Sherwin-Williams. Today we're going to show you these products. Here we go again. Let's go through the lines. We've got the Expert line, we've got LifeMaster, and then we have the Diamond. Now, I know the Dulux paints better than I know my children. Okay, I've been working with this company for 25 years. I was around when LifeMaster first came on the market. It's significant because when I'm dealing with Dulux, I know every paint that they make is manufactured for the purpose of solving a problem. They don't manufacture for the purpose of marketing. Okay, so they don't make 5 paint lines just so that there's something expensive for people who want to brag and something cheap for people who want to cheap out. Everything they make is solve a problem. You use this one to paint your walls, okay? It's that simple. This one was designed, the LifeMaster was designed, it's the first VOC paint I ever come on the market. 0 VOC, let me get that again. 0. When they first came out, they actually marketed it as safe for pregnant women. So you can actually be painting your nursery when you're 8 months pregnant. If you're crazy enough, you should get someone else to paint it for you. But and then the Diamond is a newer version of even more technology. There's been a lot of chemistry going into paint lately to try to create more stable environment. We've got ceramic microsphere technology nowadays, lets you paint in colder temperatures. We've got different oil products that are blended in with the latex paint now, okay, so that we get more performance. So each of these cans is a significant degree of performance greater. But which one's right for you? That's the question. Current retail pricing in Canada is $71, $82, and then $96 for the Diamond, all right? So very competitive. It's actually a little bit on the lower side than some of the other competitors we've looked at. I know these kind of paint stores like Sherwin and Dulux, they're out in the commercial mall area, right? They're not on the main street. They don't have the big fancy sexy store like a Benjamin Moore does. There's a reason for that, okay? They're trying to compete so that they can keep their pricing lower so that as a professional paint contractor, you can get a good quality product without having to, rob a bank before you go to work. We're gonna bust open these cans. We're gonna do a splatter test on them. We're gonna check how they are for coverage. This is gonna be interesting because I picked a really ugly color. Yeah, baby. We're gonna see how that covers. That is about as nasty as you can get. But in the world of paint, remember, they have a book there. I call it the Paint Bible. Something like 13,000 colors. And every year, these paint companies come out with what they would consider to be the colors of the year. They make their recommendations, but at the end of the day, there is a color that matches just about every ugly original 1974 tapestry you can find. Let's give this sucker a shot. We're gonna load up the cage and the roller again. Loading it up. Now, my first impression right out of the gate. This one seems a little bit wetter, okay? I'm getting a little bit of spackling and sparkling on the back of the tray liner. That means to you as a homeowner is this. If it's going to be a little thinner paint, sometimes it's because of the colorant. Now, when you read a label, you expect that 1 gallon would be a gallon, right? But in the conversion, a gallon is actually 3.8. Wait a minute, this says 3.4. Yeah, there's room for colorant. They got to leave room to add all that colorant. Sometimes when you get a color, there's so much colorant it actually thins the paint down. It's like adding water to it. So, if you have that happen to you, be careful. Take it easy. Don't roll super fast. Man, that is some ugly paint. I love it. If you could actually see yourself putting that in your house, comment below. I'm dying to know. Here we go. That applied really nice. It doesn't have any drip lines, right? Some of that's the technique, but don't forget, most of these paint companies recommend you use a 10mm roller. I'm a professional, okay? We use 10mm when we're painting a door, a smooth surface. We use 15, 18, 20s when we're doing walls, because we're trying to get it done in a hurry. One of the things that we look for as a pro is how fast can I get this paint on the wall, right? That's a real question that we answer. One of the reasons why I stayed with the Dulux so long. Let me tell you something right now. If you are still a homeowner and you're going to the box store to get advice about your paint, you're getting ripped off. There are people out there at these commercial stores who are experts in their field. They know their product. They can make good recommendations. They go on training courses, right? They actually teach these people about paint. Now, here we go. 0 VOCs. Absolutely gorgeous. Nothing wrong with that. You can paint this paint as fast as you like. In my experience, we had about a 30-minute dry time to the surface before we could sand and paint again. The technology in this paint is super fast. Very similar to the Benjamin Aura paint. Most paints on the label say 4 hours to recoat, but the reality is most people only do but 1 or 2. But the Benjamin Aura actually has a 2-hour recoat. It also has technology in it that dries super quick. So if speed's your gig, then one of those paints is probably best. There we are. There we are. The clean air choice. That's really sexy. And it comes the newest one, Dulux Diamond. Again, this one's topping out the dollar amount at the Dulux store, but it's not the most expensive paint on the market, not by a long shot. Emerald from Sherwin-Williams, more expensive. Aura from Benjamin Moore is more expensive. So this actually competes a lot better in a lot of areas. This is the one that they're like, I call it the bulletproof paint, right? Doesn't matter what kind of kids you've raised, what kind of craziness is going on. If you're running a daycare in your home, this is the washable factor that you want. I remember when LifeMaster first came out, it was washable, scrubbable, and we had about a 30-day period that we were letting paint cure. Now we're down to 2 weeks, we understand things better. Question for me is the Diamond even more washable and scrubbable than the LifeMaster? Because when this first came out, that was what it was all about. It was all about the washability. Oh, there you go. That one's not splattering at all. Very nice. Yeah, good. That's good for the shoes. We had a problem with acrylic paints back in the 90s where the eggshells with the acrylic, it just looked too shiny. It was moving closer to like a semi-gloss look on your walls. And so they went back to the drawing board and they came out with this new diamond formulation. And the first came out, it was in a flat. So we were getting a flat paint that was washable, which was unheard of at the time. And the whole point of that was the acrylic that was in that flat paint to make it washable and the other additives, they gave it the sheen on a flat paint. It was closer to what you would expect an eggshell to be back in 1980. And so it came off really soft, hit a lot of imperfections. And so that was an amazing opportunity to go back to using a flat paint. We're going to test this out. See how well this paint holds up to getting sanded after an hour and a half. There we go. Look at all the color we picked up. Okay. This is what happens when you paint and faster than you're supposed to. Instead of giving it 4 hours, we gave it an hour, hour and 20. Now, you can see all the texture that was in this wall. Now the texture sanded off and so is the color. Even sanded off the green that was behind it. All right, that's a really good test to see how well it covers when we're all done. Here we go. Now this paint here has got acrylic and hardeners and fast drying aspects. Yeah, and it didn't have as much damage as the first one. But still, paint that's relatively fresh, you have to be delicate with your sanding, which is why we're using a sanding sponge foam, okay? We're literally just looking for dirt that was in the atmosphere or came off the lint roller, trying to make sure that we don't have any imperfections on the wall before we do our last coat. All right, so they all sanded just fine. Now, when we're figuring out which is the best paint for you guys to use, obviously, you know, the speed that you're working isn't as much of an issue. The performance is probably the biggest sticking point. Finding that balance in spending the right amount of money without overspending, right? Life is expensive right now, and if you got to paint a room and you can do it for half the price, you should do it. So here we go, looking on second coat. Here we're going to be testing the coverage. How well does this orangey red cover over this olive green? And this is not even a good color. If you have to do a paint over paint, try to stay in those brown tones. A lot of the lighter primary colors, reds and yellows that are mixed together, they cover really poorly. And it's not uncommon for, you can need 3 or 4 coats sometimes. So, well, that looks pretty darn good. I'm giving myself an excuse for whether or not this paint covers, but that's just experience talking. I remember late 90s, early 2000s, it was all the rage to paint red, fire engine red in residential homes. And of course, when that craze came about, nobody in the paint world had the technology to deal with it. They were like translucent colors, okay? They were brutal. And we would be painting walls 5, 6, 7 coats, and you couldn't sand in between coats because anything that showed up white was now going to be a dot forever, because it took 7 coats to cover. Wherever you sanded was only 6 coats, and you could see the spot. That's how thin those paints went on the wall. People got away from translucent colors because, like me, if you gave me one of those translucent colors as a contractor, I'd be like, nope, pick again, I'm not doing it. And then what they did is they started tinting the primer and getting a more solid base color. They were experimenting with painting gray before they went with the color, and that changed the color in the end. And whenever some genius decides to change the rules of how to paint, everybody has to learn on the fly. And for years, we had lousy paint jobs. No performance, no washability. Everybody loved the fact that they weren't using oil paints and that the lead was gone out of paints, but nobody was very excited with the results that we were getting. Check out this wall over here. Like, here's a paint job, original 1974, okay? I can see where every picture was hung. There's a little dark line. Generally, that's because they would have had an oil furnace back in the 70s, okay? And so that was dirty air, right? And then you've got everywhere where there's a nail, it's a different coloration than the wall. That speaks to a really poor quality of the paint. They didn't have color stability back in those days. Nowadays, we've got a lot more technology, so these kinds of things don't happen. You don't have to paint so often. So consider this. Find a color that can handle all the change in the trends, because your paint is going to last 25 to 50 years, no problem now. If you're worried about the cost of painting, then don't paint something obnoxious and have to paint again in a few years when the trends change. That'll save you a lot of money. All right, here we go. All these paints are great quality, right? Dulux is a PPG paint. So if you're down in the States, if you don't have Dulux stores, I'm not familiar with what's going on with that. Just look for PPG, okay? All the technology that they've developed for these paints are in their warehouse, and they can make that work happen. Well, now that it's been a couple of weeks, we're here to do our stain test. Really, today it's all about the coffee and the wine and the markers, right? Let's see what happens. Let's get all this nice and wet. Yeah, love it. La da 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 da. Hop. Oh, there we go. Alrighty. We'll get that a few minutes to soak in and see if any of these paints are protecting us from that mess. We're gonna get some greens, I think. And again, we're using washable crayons and washable markers because you wanna know, is this stuff actually gonna work if you buy it for your kids, right? Okay, green. There we go, that's the crayon. And I'm gonna notice that the last time I did this product testing, I did it with Sherwin-Williams, and I tried using the magic eraser, and it worked really good dry, but the product actually tells you that you should wet it, wring it out, and then wipe it. So we're gonna do that properly this time. Great big green marker line here. What we're finding is a lot of these products, they'll come off the surface, but they leave a residue. And so the amount of scrubbing that you have to do to get the residue off the paint actually removes the paint. So we want to know, does PPG have a product that doesn't have that problem? Now listen, when I was younger, as a professional painter, I sold this paint all the time. This was my Life Master paint. It had 0 VOC, safe for pregnant women, scrubbable, washable. They sold us, this is the best thing on the market because you can use a green scrubby pad. We're gonna find out if stuff washes off without all the use of that force. And if we have to use that much force, does the paint stay intact or is it washing off like it did with the Sherwin-Williams products? Let's just be honest, we've tried all these paints out with just water. None of them with just water actually worked. So I'm not gonna waste my time. We're gonna start off using a little bit of mild detergent on the paint. We're gonna check it out against the paint with the coffee and the wine, and then we'll check it out on all the crayon and marker, and we'll check it out on the permanent marker. Let's start off with the lowest option, the Expert. And this is a basic brand that doesn't have a whole lot of claims to it. It's a simple formulation. Yeah, see there? You can see that. It is leaving behind the streaks, not washing that off. And then we're gonna try here. This was a Life Master that's supposed to be able to be washable and scrubbable. And I am not as impressed as I expected to be. And I think what you're going to find is, so with all of these paints, things that stain get through the paint. Unless you have a really, really superior formulation. Yeah, you can see that staining real easy, eh? And then we'll try the new Diamond. Okay, so when it comes to stains, none of them really work all that great. The truth of it is the color that you pick on your walls will have a lot to do with it. The darker the color, the more you're going to cover stains. We're going to go up here now and try out these washable crayons and markers. Oh yeah, the crayon comes out no problem. You can see the markers being eaten alive here, so this is obviously going to work. Yeah, the mild detergent is really working again. Maybe a little bit of elbow grease in here. Let's clean this up so we can get a good look. Okay, so that worked phenomenal. That worked phenomenal. We're just checking our rag here to see if we get any of that orange paint coming off. Nothing so far. Now we're gonna try to get this permanent marker off. Gentle. Yeah, that's pulling the paint off. It's just not working. So I think after all these testing, we've made it really clear. Scrubbable? I'm kind of disappointed with that, to be honest with you. It was my impression that this stuff was going to be a lot more durable to the scrubbing action. Like, I'm just rubbing the paint right off the wall here. And that means you've got to repaint. Bottom line, right? I'm actually really impressed with the expert. I mean, for just dish soap, that did really nice. Now the test. This is going to be the ultimate test because at this point, if I'm using a wet rag and a little bit of elbow grease, I'm getting the stains out, but I'm getting a little bit of the paint coming with it. There we go. Wet, wring it out. There, that's actually perfect. Okay. No problem with the crayon. Yeah, that washable marker. Not so washable. Crayon, no problem. It's not coming out. Okay. Well, there we go. Washable markers only come out using a really extreme washable paint. We haven't had any of these products perform well unless it's at the top end of the product line. So don't trust the box that says washable unless you're spending $100 or more a gallon. Okay? Wow. In order for me to get that actually all out, now I'm taking the paint off. Yeah. Now I'm taking the paint off again. That's disappointing. I was really hoping that my old PPG was going to come shining through in this experiment, but it turns out that it performed much like the other ones. All right, so which one's best for you? Well, here's the thing. The washability and the scrubbability of this paint, the Life Master, okay, it isn't much different than the Expert, but it is a zero VOC paint. So if that's a concern for you, if you're pregnant, or if you are sensitive to that stuff, then this is the better of the two options on the lower end of the price point. But end of the day, the Diamond did outperform the other two. Of all the paints we've tested, it's the lowest cost of the higher performing paints. Not a bad gig. All right. Well, listen, I want to hear from you in the comment section, guys. Like, what other paints do you want me to test? There's other things you want to know, or should I do a different kind of test? Let us all know. And as for this test, it's over. Nothing worked well on the coffee and the wine. Everything worked well with the crayon. So if you're a parent out there, consider this. Give your kids crayons. And unless you're spending over $100 a gallon, don't give them markers of any kind. Cheers till next time.